Howdy, my name is Hafid, and in this video I want to show you how I created the hand animation in this piece. It was pretty easy to do. I used Cinema 4D, DAZ Studio, and then I rendered this with Octane. I honestly had a lot of trouble trying to find a way to make this work, but hey, I made it and I just want to share my process to you guys just in case you want to do something similar. So let's go. Okay, so here we are. I am using DAZ Studio version 4.15 Pro, and they actually released new models with this version. As you can see now, we have a Genesis 8.1 model. This one actually is not gonna work for us this time. It's not gonna work pretty well on the bridge. I think they have to do some updates. So I'm just gonna delete this one and we're gonna be using the previous version, Genesis number 8. This is the website where you can find the plugin. I'm gonna leave it down in the description, but it's basically comes from DAZ Studio themselves. And this is just gonna allow you to transfer all the model with the rig, with the textures. You know, you can use it in Maya, Blender, Cinema 4D, pretty much every standard 3D software that is available right now. All you have to do is just click on the software that you're gonna use, and then you're gonna get started for free. This is just a free plugin. DAZ is free as well, and this is just gonna work according to whatever 3D software you're gonna use. Okay, so back to the model. Once again, we're gonna be using the Genesis 8 version, and yes, you can obviously go to File, and then just click on Export. This way of exporting is only going to give us an OBJ format model, and this should work fine if you just need to export the mesh and the materials, but we're not going to be using the OBJ. We actually need something a little bit more different, and this is the reason that we're going to be using this DAZ model, because as you can see, it comes with the bones. It already comes rigged. If I move the hands, you can see it that it's pretty much working already, is ready to be animated. Inside of Cinema 4D, I am using version R23, so this is working with the latest version of Cinema. Under extensions, you're gonna go to DAZ to Cinema 4D. You should be able to see that plugin. And once again, this is going to allow us to do that conversion from DAZ Studio to Cinema 4D. And honestly, all you have to do is just click here on auto import. Just wait a couple seconds and the model should come in automatically. There we have it, as well as the bones. We can already see them. We also have the materials here at the bottom, and it is going to prompt you to save the textures. Everything should be transferred so it's done. So just save the textures before you do anything else. So just click and save with textures. Find a folder where you're going to save the project and then just save them in there. For this example, I don't want to save them, so I'm just going to click on later. Textures are loaded in. We have, as you can see, the teeth, torso, all of the other body parts. Now there is a way for you over here to convert the materials if you want to use a different render. Besides the native Cinema 4D, you have V-Ray, Redshift. I'm going to be using Octane. We also have the option to just set up the specular weight and the specular roughness, but you can obviously do this inside of your render node system with like a gradient map. You can change the value, the gamma. You already know this is not really a tutorial to do that, but I'm going to click on convert. It's going to prompt you, give you a warning. There's no undoing after converting the materials. So I'm just going to click on save. I'm going to give it a couple more seconds. And as you can see, my Octane was activated and all the materials should be transferred correctly. So we can actually see them in Octane now. Once again, here we have our model. And as you can see, the joints are already set up. We got imported the joints and the objects menu. We can go throughout the joints, all of the children. We have the hip. We can move them around. We can rotate them. Actually have to use the pelvis to rotate it. And if this is all you need to start animating those joints, here I'm gonna move, I don't know, the leg. As you can see, this is all rigged. This is ready to go. Of course, you still need to animate this, but as you can see, we have a lot of control already, and you can customize the model to whatever you're looking for. But everything is pretty much already done. Now, I'm gonna be using this auto IK feature, which is going to create basically a rig, a different kind of rig. I don't really know the specifics of it, but it's going to be a different kind of rig that's going to work a lot better in terms of how everything is going to be reacting with each other. You know, basically how if I click over here in the middle and if I move it up and down, I have to click on the pelvis. It's going to look kind of weird because there's not really like a lot of constraints on the mesh, on the joints themselves. So I'm going to click on AutoK. It's going to prompt us again that there's no undoing for this. This is fine. going to click on yes. It's going to reset it back to its T-pose. It's going to ask you again, can you want to AutoCAD? I'm going to click on yes. Give it a couple seconds, and now we see that we have some kind of rings around some of the joints. We also got imported, we got converted, we got different things here on the objects. But now we can see that we can access the control of those bones without going into deep into the joints. So basically right now I'm just grabbing this, I don't know what these things are called, like the joint rig or something. This is how usually you get your rigs and your models. But basically it's giving me a lot more movement, a lot more natural movement, and it's all coming from DAZ Studio to Cinema 4D. So this is working pretty good. We actually have a rig for the face even. But in this video, I just want to show you how to do it with the hands. It can get a little bit more complicated with the face, but as you can see, we have the joints already set up for the hands. I don't think that we have a rig for the toes. No, we don't have a rig for the toes, but that is fine. We're only going to be using the fingers for this tutorial. I am done using the bridge, so I'm going to close it. Okay, let's finally get into how to isolate specific parts of this character. Let's say you only want the face. In our case, we only want the hands. Now, I cannot click into the mesh of the character because it's locked, but I'm going to click into Layer Manager over here just by clicking on the red icon. You can also access the layers here on the right. They already come color coded just in case you have a lot of layers, but the way you unlock them, you basically just click on this lock icon and it's going to give you access to the actual mesh. As you can see now, I can click on it. I can go into the polygon mode and actually make a selection, which is what we're going to do next. But I want to show you here this post morph tag, which is basically transferring all of the morphs that you get from DAZ Studio. This is already really helpful. As you can see now, I can just have some sliders if you want to make the animation of the hand, of the face, of some expressions. And this already comes with the Genesis 8 model. This is what I don't recommend using the model 8.1 version that we talked about at the beginning, because I couldn't get it to work. The morphs were not included. So if you don't need the face morphs, then you should be fine. You can use the 8.1 model. But for this 8.0, you actually get them, which is pretty nice. You only have to animate a slider, and the expressions already come from DAZ Studio itself. I know it's a lengthy process, but basically this is how you get, this is the easiest way as of now to get your models from DAZ Studio into Cinema 4D with the rig working and everything. But again, for this tutorial, let's say that I just want to isolate the hand part of this model, of this character. And I do have access to the mesh now that we unlocked it. So what I'm going to do is just do a polygon selection on the hand, and I'm going to get rid of the rest of the body. Now, in order for me to keep the rig of the hand, I have to keep the rig of the rest of the body. So I'm not actually going to delete the rest of the body parts. I'm just going to hide them from the render and from Cinema 4D itself. What I'm going to do now is just create a selection on the hand itself. I'm going to click on only select visible elements, so I can click on everything that's behind of the mesh. And then I'm going to press U and then letter I to invert the selection. So I select everything else but the hand. And just in case you missed it, I'm not going to delete the mesh. I'm just going to hide it, because if you delete the mesh, something like this is going to happen. It actually might work at the beginning, but once you reopen the file where you have this model, as you can see, I deleted the rest of the body parts and I only have the hand, but there is nothing for the joints of the hand nor the mesh of the rest of the body. I don't really know how this works, but there's no way for it to know where to place this mesh. And the rig is actually working, but as you can tell, the hand, the mesh of the hand itself just doesn't know what's going on, because I think that it has to know where the rest of the body is, the rest of the mesh, but because I deleted it, it just doesn't know what's going on. So let me just save you some time before you delete anything. And that's why I find out that this is a workaround. Another way that I try to isolate a body part is basically just using a bool object. And then here I'm going to be using a cube. And just use the cube and put the shape inside of the bool to just isolate the body part that I want. But once again, this is going to be deleting the mesh using the bool operation. So we don't want to delete the mesh. We only want to hide it because then it's going to create a whole lot of a mess. But I just wanted to show you some of the method, some of the things that I try until I finally come up with this solution. So once again, I'm going to select only the hand of this model. Right now I'm pressing 9 to get this live selection. And this only select visible elements is obviously only going to select the front of whatever I can see from the camera, but I'm going to deselect it so I can create a selection across from the model. So everything behind of it is going to be selected. And right now I'm just going to fine tune it. This is according to how much of the hand you want to keep. I am just going to clean it up just a little bit so I can get a pretty even cut. Not really a cut. Once again, we're only going to hide this, but this is the part that I want to keep. Once you have everything selected, we're going to click on set selection. You can also find this under the select menu, go to set selection, but you can also press shift plus the letter C, and you can just type selection, and it's going to be the third one in there. So just click on that one. It's going to create, basically save the selection that you just created. So now if we go into the shape itself, let's scroll all the way to the right. Here we have our selection, and I'm just going to change the name to something like hand. And now that that is saved, I'm going to press the letter U, letter I to invert my selection so the rest of the body parts are selected, and we can start to hide these. So these are the parts that we want to hide. Now we're going to go to select, hide selected, and this is going to automatically hide them, but this is only going to happen in the viewport. So you are going to get that body part isolated. As you can see, we only have the hand, but we still have everything in the scene. It's just hidden for us. Now, this technique only works on the viewport. If I open up Octane, you can see that the model is still there. Octane, we haven't really told Octane that this is not visible in the render, so it's still going to see it. The hide selected, again, only works on the viewport itself. So what we're going to do is basically create a material and just assign it to the rest of the body parts and just make those invisible. Again, we cannot delete the shape because it's dependent on the rig, and we don't want it to act crazy like that example that I gave you. So what I'm going to do is just basically merge all of these materials into one, and I'm just going to keep the material for the hand itself. So what you can do is just create a diffuse material. You can find it at the bottom. You can find it over here at the top. I'm just going to create this diffuse material. But actually what I need to do first is, because I want to keep the textures of this hand, I want to make a copy of this arms material. So I'm just going to click and drag it into the end. I'm going to rename it hands. And this is basically, I'm going to reassign this into the shape itself. So you can just click, drag it, and just let it into the shape. If you go all the way back to the end, you can see that the material is there once again. But now we have this selection tag. So what we're going to do is click on the material and then drag the selection tag under the selection of the material. It's going to look just the same, but this is just for us to isolate only the hand based on that selection that we created. We're going to be using this Octane diffuse material in order to basically erase or kind of like hide everything on the mesh. I'm going to replace all of the other materials with this Octane diffuse. So I'm just going to click on it. I'm holding Alt and just drag it on top of the material. And this is automatically just going to basically replace any other material that you want. I'm going to do it with the rest of them, but the hand selection that we have, as you can see now, everything is white. Everything is our diffuse material, but we have this isolated area of our hand with the textures included from the original model. Now, here's what the trick comes in. I'm going to take this Octane diffuse material and I'm going to go into the opacity tag and just put that all the way down to 0. And now we have this isolated, we fake the isolation of this hand. Once again, because we need the whole model, we basically just isolated this by faking the selection, just giving it a material, and just have the opacity all the way to 0. So Octane cannot see it, but it's technically still there. And from here, it was just a matter for me to animate the fingers and the hands to my liking. I cannot click properly into the joints themselves. I'm clicking into the mesh. So what I'm gonna do is go, well, right now, yeah, I kind of click it, but it's mostly gonna, it's pretty hard to click on the joints themselves. So it's gonna be pretty hard to animate. So what I'm gonna go is and do the locking system that we had at the beginning. So I'm gonna lock the shape, the mesh. So now it's more easy to click onto the joints. So I can take this one and rotate it, take the other one, rotate it, and just create the animation. You know, I did it on keyframes. I know there's a way to do it with the post morphs, but I don't think this is possible. I don't know a way to do it with this technique, but here you have it. This is how I created that animation. And just in case you don't want your scene to be messy, I'm going to deactivate the locks just so I can delete the shorts. I only had them so we don't have to see the parts of that character. I can also delete the eyelashes because I'm not going to be using them. So I only have the mesh of the hand itself. Once again, it's isolated, and I'm just going to save us a little bit more of space in the scene. Another thing that I want to show you is that in order to actually move the model of our hand, do not use the axis that comes with the shape. There is a reason, once again, that this is locked. Do not move anything because it's based on the rig, and you should not move the mesh because it's just going to mess everything up. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to lock this back into place, and I'm going to create a null, and I'm going to drag everything inside of that null. Now, it's not going to work on the shape that we just locked. So make sure that you unlock it before you put it inside of the null. And now you can actually drag it inside of the null. And our null is just gonna, we're gonna use the axis of our null, and we're gonna move it. I'm gonna be using the enable axis option. So I can move the axis, and let me actually get into my right view, front view. And I can move this axis, and this is not gonna change the position. This is just only going to change the axis. So our mesh is going to be intact. We're not going to have any problems. And this is just a way for you to get more control over it. So now everything that you move around, if you want to animate the position of this, you can do it. Let me just name this left hand. And from here, just like any other object, you can take it and then you can move it around. If you want to clean up the viewport a bit more and not have all of the rig controls, you can go into filter and just deselect the nulls, and that's just gonna get rid of the rigging controls. You can also click on joints, and it's gonna get rid of the joints. But I mean, you're not gonna be able to see them, so I recommend that you keep the joints because you want to see what you're going to be animated. So it's definitely a way more cleaner than having all of the rigging controls. But yeah, definitely keep the joints just so you can have something to see. And finally, I just want to share some channels that have helped me a lot. The first one is New Plastic. This channel goes actually pretty deep into a lot of skinning and Octane and Cinema 4D. As you can see, they also have some Octane skin tutorials. He goes pretty in depth into it. His workflow from DAZ to Octane as well. The second one is Carly Fits. I think I'm pronouncing it right, but they also have some. Their workflow also consists of DAZ to Octane, Cinema 4D. So you can probably find some pretty useful stuff in there. I know I learned a lot of tricks just by watching some of those videos. And the last one, but actually the most important one to me, has been Travis Davis. This guy just actually makes a lot of cool content. He's been doing a lot of Octane lately. He's been doing a lot of Marvel Designer, which is basically just a software where you can do clothing simulation. You can also do it in DAZ Studio, but Marvelous Designer, I think, is the industry standard. But as you can see, he has a lot of variety of tutorials. Octane, here's where you can see DAZ Studio to Octane. A lot of materials. This guy has a lot of content. I really recommend checking it out. But yeah, this is where I learned a lot of this stuff. And of course, check out my own channel if you are interested. I also have a variety of stuff. It's just a bunch of things that I learned and I just want to share with the community. So if you're interested, go ahead and check that out. You can also check out my projects from back in college. But yeah, that's everything for this video and I'll catch you on the next one.